It's time to accelerate. Hey friends, this is Andy. Welcome to episode 711. That's 711 of Accelerate. It is the sales podcast of record. Hey, I have another excellent episode lined up for you today. Joining me as my guest is Stacey Brown Randall. Stacey is the author of a book titled Generating Business Referrals Without Asking, a simple 5-step plan to a referral explosion. And today we're going to talk about why Stacey believes that if you have to ask for referrals, then you're doing something wrong. And Stacey will share why asking referrals goes against the fundamental truth of why referrals happen in the first place. And we're going to talk about the important distinction between someone giving us a referral as well as asking for it, which means, are we making it all about us or are we making about them? Stacey is also going to share her 5-step system to create triggers for getting referrals that's based on using the psychology of why referrals are given. So you'll make sure you stick around for that. Now, before I do that, I want to take a quick second to talk about the Sales House. It is your sales growth accelerator for B2B sellers. Now, if you're not completely satisfied with where you're heading in your career, where you are today, and not really sure how you're going to get to where you want to be, then the Sales House is the ideal resource for you to help you reach that next level, to help you realize your goals and your ambitions. Members in the Sales House get unlimited access to sales playbooks, sales checklists, courses, coaching, mentoring, as well as an engaged community to help you sell with more confidence, greater acumen, more trust, and greater impact. It's all designed to help you succeed in winning more deals. And remember that in sales, that to learn more means that you will undoubtedly earn more. So come learn to be the best version of yourself in the Sales House. That is thesaleshouse.com. I look forward to seeing you there. Okay, let's jump into it with Stacey. Stacey, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Andy.
Well, it's my pleasure. So you're joining us from where today?
Charlotte, North Carolina.
Charlotte, North Carolina. So are you a Panthers fan?
We actually are. Mm-hmm. Yes, for football. We're a house divided when it comes to baseball. But for football, we are all Panthers.
So living in Carolina, like between the Nationals and the Braves?
No, I mean, I guess that would make more sense. But my husband is actually from upstate New York. Okay. So he is a diehard Yankee fan.
All right.
And I'm actually a Red Sox fan.
Really?
So my grandfather, I know, right? It doesn't make a lot of sense. My grandfather was from Framingham, Massachusetts. And my parents said that was kind of like my connection. And then I went on a field trip in middle school to Boston. And I came back and I just never shut up about the city. And so the Red Sox have been my team ever since.
Got it. So have you had a chance to go see a game at Fenway?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. And Yankee Stadium, I presume.
Oh, yes. We've actually done 11 of the 30-something stadiums. Our goal is to get to all of them. Yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah. Well, you have to come to San Diego. It's a beautiful place to see a game when I'm there.
I've been twice.
You've been to that one? Okay.
Yeah, but I haven't been to that stadium. No, our rule is we can't go to a new stadium without each other, my husband and I. So even though I was in San Diego, I ran by the stadium, or maybe I walked. I don't really run. Yeah. But I saw it, but I didn't actually go see a game there.
Okay. All right. Well, put it on your list. Now they have Manny Machado, so... more reasons to go see.
All the more worth it.
Yeah. Well, good. All right. So we're going to talk about referrals today and sort of talk about things you've written about in your book called Generating Business Referrals Without Asking, which is really the primary premise of the book, which is that you shouldn't have to ask for referrals. So why is that?
Yeah. So, when you think about how most things happen in sales, typically there's a trigger. Right. I mean, there's just a trigger that happens that leads someone to be like, oh, I have a problem, trigger, let me go figure out how I'm going to solve it. Right. Or they're having a conversation with someone or they're watching a presentation or going through a training and there's a trigger that they're like, oh, I need to actually do that. The same thing with triggers. It's the same with referrals when it comes to triggers. It's just the trigger is typically how it's been taught for generations, right? I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, the trigger we want is for someone to be in a situation and the trigger to happen, which is, hey, I have a problem. And them to say, oh, I know Andy can solve it for you. I know exactly who can solve it for you. You got to talk to Andy, right?
Andy has the answers.
Andy has the answers, right? Don't go to anybody else. And so we're looking for that trigger to happen with referrals as well. The reality of it, though, is we don't control the trigger. The trigger happens when somebody is having a conversation with someone else, or they know about something of someone else and they're like, hey, I know somebody who can solve your problem, right? You got to go talk to Andy, you got to go talk to Stacey. But we don't like that in sales, right? I mean, most people who are in sales are looking for the trigger so we can make things happen. That's why people cold call, right? We're looking for someone to answer the phone and be half alive, and maybe we can get a trigger of them saying, yes, I'll take a meeting. So it's why we have lots of different tactics out there when it comes to prospecting and marketing, looking for different triggers. Well, the same thing with referrals, except for we don't control the trigger when it comes to referrals. So what do most people do when you don't control something? You try to figure out how to control it.
Sure.
And the way that we've been taught for decades, I don't know, I wouldn't say generations and generations, but definitely decades and decades, is that if you want a referral, you have to create your own trigger. And the trigger is typically you have to ask the person for a referral, or you have to use some type of referral gimmick, like put in your signature line, the best compliment you can give me as a referral, or to write a book and then give it to people and ask them to pass it out to their clients, right? And then that's how they're effectively recommending you. Or it's the trigger of some type of like incentivized referral program where I'm going to pay you every time you send me a referral, and I'm going to promote that. So we go looking for triggers. It's the ask, it's the commission program, or it's the, gimmicky part of the referrals. And we've been doing that for decades. But the reality is most people don't like using those triggers because they feel manufactured, right? They feel false because it's true. They are. And if you understand the human dynamic and the psychology behind why referrals happen, somebody else helping somebody solve a problem, you just happen to be the solution provider. It's not about you. And when we ask, and when we use a gimmick, or when we try to pay you money for it, we're making that referral about us. Now, I still believe that we have to have our own trigger to have referrals happen. I just approach the trigger mechanism from an entirely different perspective. And it means that you shouldn't be asking, you shouldn't be paying, and you definitely should not be making your referral generation marketing or gimmicky. It has to come up, right, why a referral actually happens, which my process and my system looks at it from the perspective of let's figure out the psychology behind why a referral happens and then try to create triggers from that perspective. Which is why it's, without asking and without paying people and without making it gimmicky.
Okay. So, yeah, and I think in business-to-business sales, there's not much going on in terms of paying people for referrals, though I'm sure it happens in some cases.
Right.
Yeah, you could say an affiliate program is basically a paid referral program.
Except for those are disclosed up front. And that's what makes them okay, right? So an affiliate relationship, you disclose it up front. Same thing in the real estate market between realtors. If one realtor hands another realtor a client, it's signed paperwork that says this is what's going to happen, or a
sure,
fee,
it's disclosed, right,
is going to be paid if it closes. So it's the same thing with affiliates. That's all disclosed up front. When most people talk about paying for referrals, they're doing it behind the scenes, and that's when it's not the right trigger. Yeah,
I would agree. I mean, been in sales for 40 years. I've never heard anybody do that, but I'm sure perhaps it does. So, all right, well, let's talk about your process, because I think that for some people there'll be some, that's what people want these days. They want a process. They want a step-by-step recipe for things, but maybe you could fill in some of the gaps here. So you have a 5-step plan that you talk about. So let's walk through that.
Sure. So if we want to take my 5 steps and look at it first from kind of like, where does my 5 steps create the trigger? When you understand the human dynamic and the psychology behind referrals, it truly is somebody else helping somebody else. I just want to be top of mind in that referral source's mind so that when that opportunity is there, they think of me, right? And so how we take care of our referral sources.
Well, which assumes that they know what you want to be referred for.
Yes,
and what you can do for those people.
Absolutely.
So,
right.
so how do you ensure that they know that, right? That's sort of the, and you talk about some in your book in terms of staying connected, and more than just an occasional check-in basis. But I think this is sort of the nub of the matter before you start getting into the processes. And the failure of most referral programs is they just don't know what you want, what you're looking for, and what you can do.
Well, yes, because we make the assumption incorrectly, right? That's what assumptions are. But we make the assumption that anybody can refer us. Strangers can refer us. But when we think about who's actually referring us, or who should be referring us, or who we want to be referring us, we recognize that we have to have a relationship with them. We have to build trust with them. And part of that is them understanding what I do and who I can help. and sometimes who I can't help. So when I talk to people about my 5 steps, there's a few, I would say, thoughts that I already have in place that I'm assuming you already have down, meaning that you are really clear on what your client experience looks like, right? And then you're also really clear on the fact that you need to build relationships with your referral sources because strangers aren't going to refer you.
Sure.
And you don't just get referrals from clients, right? You can also get referrals from, centers of influence and people in your network that actually know what you do, but don't do what you do, and then come across your ideal client. So yes, it doesn't mean every time you get a referral, it's going to be the perfect referral, right? I always tell the students in my Growth by Referrals program, I'm like, look, in the beginning, we're actually going to focus on quantity, because we want to build the habit in our referral sources to refer us. Granted, I don't want a CPA, right, receiving a referral to help someone buy a house. I'm not talking about completely out of the realm of what would be close to a client for you. But we want kind of that mechanism of them building the habit of referring us before we decide to have a conversation with them and focused on quality. Because quality is important. It just comes second once that habit's been built with our referral sources. We ultimately want the quality there, but the conversation you have with a referral source who is sending you referrals, but not ideal fit or not the ones you can help, there is a conversation to be had with them, but it has to come after they've referred you a couple of times so that you can position it correctly so they don't take offense and they don't start thinking, oh, I have to qualify people before I send them to you. We don't ever want them in that place.
No, that's not their job. So you talk about sort of two primary referral sources. You've got your centers of influence you talked about. So explain what that means.
Yeah, so centers of influence are just basically they're people in your network. It's a subset of people in your network who know what you do. Like they're very clear. Oh, yes, okay. Andy does this, right? Stacey does this. And they don't do what you do. So there's no competitive overlap. And then at the same time, they also come across your ideal client. So they're more likely to actually be in their business setting, right? More than likely. This can happen in personal settings as well. Right. They're more likely to come across who you need as a client. And so from that perspective, they become your centers of influence. So you can receive referrals from them. And then, of course, you can receive referrals from your clients as well. I mean, and of course, every once in a while, you'll get referrals from family or somebody who may know you, who knows you, but you don't know them. That happens a lot. It's way more rare. But usually it's centers of influence and it is your clients are the two biggest groups or bulks of the referrals you're going to receive, who they're going to come from.
All right. So if you're a salesperson, 2 questions then come to mind is how many centers of influence is it logical that you could have, or is there an optimal number on that? Anything?
So it really depends on how many referrals you need in a year will dictate how many centers of influence you need being referral sources for you. Now, if you're in sales, my guess is if you're doing it, depending on this, I guess I should say, depending on the sales that you're in, the reality of it is you probably have a large network. Most people usually do. I would say business owners are in the same kind of boat. Not always, but they have a large network. You may know thousands and thousands of people, right? You may have thousands of people who follow you or like you on Facebook or connected you on LinkedIn, right? And then you may be very well known in certain circles. So there's always that network, right? And that's very important to be known in a network. But what we're looking for is to kind of funnel down to the people who will actually be more likely to refer you because they're going to come across the opportunity to refer you. So how many centers of influence you need as referral sources is really dictated by, well, how many referrals do you need? Are you the attorney, right, who needs about 12 cases a year and you'd like to be picky so you can pick the right cases? So getting 20 referrals in a year is more than you could possibly ever need and allows you to pick and choose what you want. Or, right, are you in more of a little bit more transactional kind of sales where you need more like 50 clients in a year or 100 clients in a year? Well, then that's going to determine how many referral sources you need, because how well your referral sources refer you dictates how many of them you actually need. If you've got referral sources, let's just say you need 50 clients in a year, new clients, not repeat. You need 50 clients in a year and you've got 50 referral sources, but only 20 of them are actually really active.
Yeah,
so
50 sounds like too many, quite frankly.
Well, right. Well, first of all, exactly. But 20 of them are probably active, right? So they're actually sending you someone at least once, one person a year as a referral, maybe 2 a year. Well, I would say, well, we would just cut out that other 30 that we don't need because they're not active. We're looking for those active referral sources and then being intentional about growing more referral sources if we need them.
Okay, so that was the second part of the question then, is how do you identify and grow a referral source, a center of influence?
So it first comes down to making sure that's the type of person you want to have a relationship with. Because at the end of the day, referral sources are only going to refer you because of a relationship with you and the trust that they have in you, which means you're going to need to spend some time. And I call this staying top of mind, not keeping in touch, but staying top of mind in a memorable and meaningful way, which is part of my 5 steps, so that they don't go 9 months without hearing from you. And then when they do hear from you, it's something that's impactful for them so that they remember it longer. And you're more likely, when the triggering event happens, for them to know somebody who has a problem, right? They automatically think of you because you're top of mind. You want to be top of mind when the trigger happens. And so it comes down to developing relationships with your referral sources.
Right. Agree, 100%. But so the question, I guess, would come to mind is say, okay, am I developing somebody as a referral source? And I'm using the center of influence term to distinguish from a client. Is this somebody that potentially I just don't know at all? And I just think, okay, based on the criteria I'm looking for, in terms of the various overlaps that you mentioned before, this is just someone I'm proactively going to go out and basically prospect in order to develop them into a center of influence?
Well, that's the harder way to do it. I mean, it definitely happens that way.
But that's what I just want to make sure for the people listening is that, are they new, or are these people that you already know that you're then developing as a center of influence?
So you don't typically walk up to someone and be like, you should be a referral source for me.
Well, no, but if they identify them as somebody that'd be appropriate.
Right. So that's the first step, is actually identifying who are the people who have the potential to be referral sources for you. And
typically
then the second
within
step,
your network.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the second step is figuring out, okay, I need to start developing a relationship with them. So what does that look like? And this is the part that takes time. And it's the part that most people lack patience for, but people don't just start referring you all of a sudden, right? So I guess I have a masterclass I take people through about how to turn clients into referral sources, and then how to turn centers of influence into referral sources. And it's actually a process I teach where we're looking at it like almost on a monthly basis of like, okay, you've identified who you want to be referring you. Right now you're connecting with them to see if you guys can actually meet face to face, if that's possible, if they're local, if not, maybe on a Skype call, right? Doing a virtual coffee, and you're literally just seeing how you can help them. And it doesn't actually matter if anything comes out of it for you, as you're building a relationship with them. So it's that giver's mentality. It's that taking care of them, seeing how you can help them, and really understanding their business, and then looking for opportunities to do that. But then you also have, in my masterclass, I call it like the running 5 and keeping warm. And it's effectively the idea of, okay, so who are the people right now in this month that we're trying to develop into referral sources, right? That's our running number. It's not 5 for everybody, right?
Sure.
But then we have to, once we've actually had a relationship with them and established a relationship with them, that first initial contact, then it's the idea of, after that, like, how we're going to keep them warm until they give us the first referral. And then we can actually move them into a referral source. And then there's a whole other process for how we take care of them to cultivate referrals there. But what I teach people in that masterclass of increasing referral sources is this idea that, if there's someone you want to meet that you don't know, it's a lot easier to go looking for somebody who will make an introduction for you, obviously. Sometimes it's figuring out, oh, you know what, they serve on the board of this organization. I'll go attend a couple of meetings and see if I can introduce myself, right? So there's different ways for you to get in front of that person to hopefully cultivate them to a place where they'll say, hey, let's grab coffee and catch up. Most of the time, people actually don't identify exactly who they want as their referral sources. They don't sit down and be like, I need that attorney at that law firm, or I need that person in that sales company to be my referral source. Sometimes they can, but a lot of times it's knowing what your ideal center of influence has, like what do they have in common with, with other referral sources of yours, and then trying to identify those when you are at networking events, or when you are looking at the directory of an organization that you are a member of, or when you are, paying attention to who your close friends in the business world know from that perspective, who are the well-connected people that they know. So this part takes time, and most people are impatient. And so it's the part they try to skip over. Sure. Which is why most people look at turning clients into referral sources, because for most it seems easier, though not everybody actually can receive referrals from clients. Some people have to just focus on centers of influence. But it effectively comes down to like old school business building, which is getting to know people, seeing how you can help them, right? Because what happens, right, at the end of the day, when we help somebody, usually when we help somebody, I mean, some people are dead inside, but for those that aren't, they do look for a way to help somebody back. Maybe not a one-to-one exact way.
Sure.
But it could be as easy as just making an introduction for them or inviting them to go along to a networking event with you or sending them an article that you read about. But you're keeping them warm, right? And you're helping them, taking care of them. And then when they send you that first referral or they ask, sometimes they'll even ask and be like, hey, thanks so much for all the help you're giving me. Who can I keep my eyes open for you, right? I mean, in those mechanisms and those times, right, definitely you can have those conversations.
Well, isn't there a time that comes so when you have to ask somebody, would you be open to being a referral source for them? If you've built this relationship, if you've given them, this is, I think people are listening to the show are going to say, oh, yeah, I'm a salesperson. I got to go for the close at some point.
Right, because we want to make action happen, right? But actually, my answer to that would be no. Okay. You don't ever ask anyone to become a referral source. You don't ever ask anyone to send you referrals. And it's one thing to ask somebody that
clients?
You know. Even clients. We don't ask clients to be referral sources and we don't ask for referrals from them. Same with our centers of influence. Now, let me give you the caveat there. There is that opportunity where you know somebody really well and you know they know somebody else that you would really like to meet. And so you can ask them for an introduction, but you still do not ask them for a referral to that person. Mm-hmm. And 9 times out of 10, it works when you're asking to meet that person because you want them to be a COI. Not necessarily because you want them to be a client. People are much more willing to be like, sure, we're going to the same networking event. Why don't you just go with us? Right? And I'll introduce you there. Right. But it's still never an ask for a referral. So most people are like, great. So I'm going to get to know these people. I'm going to meet them. I'm going to take care of them. I'm going to, make sure that they know that I'm trying to find ways to help them and be a resource for them. Okay, then where's the referral happen? Same question you asked, like, when's the referral piece happen? Do I have to ask? Do I have to go for the close? And I always say, no, but you do have to figure out how to weave in referral seeds. And you have to know how to plant referral seeds.
Okay. So what's a referral seed then?
Yeah. So a referral seeds allows people to think about you in a referral perspective, right? So the easiest example that I can give you, now there are so many opportunities to plant a referral seed. In the program Growth by Referrals, there's like dozens and dozens of scripts we talk about and opportunities to do this. But the easiest one that anybody listening today can go and take this and be like, I'm going to go try that and see what happens, right? The easiest one to be able to plant for a referral seed is, when you're at a networking event and you're having a conversation with someone, the typical question that is always asked at the very beginning is, oh yeah, how's business? So Andy, if I were to meet you for the first time at an event, or maybe I know you a little bit better, and I ask you, so how's business? What is your typical response you would say?
Business is always great.
Always great, right? Now, there's really nothing wrong with your response. It's just missing an opportunity to make an impression, right? So, and I don't want you to have one of those like gimmicky, like kind of like, oh, I'm so awesome.
Who's posing the question? The person seeking who was I in that?
It's when someone asks, yeah. So it's like, it's right. Well, depending on who's asking you, how's business may determine on the answer that you give. I respect that. Yes. Right. It may be the person you don't want to talk to and you're like, it's awesome. Got to go by. Right. But if you're having a conversation with somebody and they say, so how's business, Andy? Instead of saying it's always great, you can still say that. You can say, it's always great. Last week, I just brought on 2 new clients and they were both referred to me. Right. So if we were having this conversation at a networking event and you came up to me, right, in this moment and you're like, hey, Stacey, how's business? I would say, oh my gosh, it's awesome. I just wrapped up working with 4 brand new VIP referral students of mine, referral clients of mine going through my VIP process. It's really awesome. 2 of them were referred to me and 1 heard me on a podcast and 1 heard me speak at an event. Right. So it's that idea to talk about, but the best ones, right, are of course always the ones that are referred to us. That's why I started with that. So it's that idea of planting the seed of where your clients are coming from. They're coming from referral, right? So it's not saying I work by referral. Like, we're not trying to be gimmicky. We're just stating, we're answering a question with a better way and a better statement that feels way more normal and natural for most people. And we're just saying, oh gosh, thanks, Andy, for asking how business is. It's great. I just onboarded a couple of new clients and the majority of them came through referral from other clients of mine. It just makes going to business so much easier. Don't you agree?
So
right? And it allows that conversation.
And is the seeds sort of the same things you write about your book? I think I was looking at the strategic response.
Yeah, so it is. So, and it's
Okay.
actually part 4 or step 4 of the entire 5-step process is your ability to know how to plant the seeds and to how to plant and use that language. And it's not always just the use of the word referral, though that's the easiest to plant. And I always tell folks when people take my Referral Ninja quiz, which is just a free 9-question quiz I have where people can figure out how good are you actually at generating referrals? Like what's your skill, what's your ability, what's your level? They take this Referral Ninja quiz and it tells them that they're one of 3 levels. You're a Referral Ninja beginner, you're a Referral Ninja in training, or you're a Referral Ninja master. And 85% of the people, over the thousands of people who've taken the quiz, are going to land at the beginner level. Another, it's like 84, 85%. Another, 13, 14% are going to land at the in training, and only 2% make it to the master level. And I always tell folks when they're in my program, they're trying to go from beginner to in training to master. What keeps them from master is actually mastering the language piece and understanding how we use this in a normal conversation where it feels real, right? But it's our ability to remember to do it and to be able to master the language. You got to master some other pieces too, but that is typically, it's why it's its own standalone module in my program. It's like, you got to get the language piece. You got to understand how we plant referral seeds and what that language piece looks like. And it's not like you're doing it every day and every single time I talk to you, I'd be like the same answer, but it is understanding and weaving in that basic language.
Okay. So that was sort of step 1 and step 4. We sort of covered there. So step 2 is said master an immediate thank you process. So what's that?
Right. So, okay, the first, let me just back up for a quick second. Step 1, because we kind of glossed over it just a little bit, it's actually knowing who your referral sources are. So if you need referral sources, that's a pre-step, right? Like that's a step 0. If you need referral sources, that's what we talked about, turning centers of influence and clients into referral sources. Once you know who your referral sources are, and if you've been in business more than 2 years and you do good work, you probably have some. You'll probably be surprised at who they are because you think you know, but unless you look at the data, you don't really know. And a financial advisor I was doing a VIP session with, and he was like, I've got 30 referral sources, right? And when I was done with him, he had 6 because sometimes we think things are referral sources that aren't. So step 1 is knowing who your referral sources are. Step 2 is making sure it's just a simple part of the process. Most people say it's out of order here. Like, what is this doing here? It's number 2 because I don't ever want anyone to overlook it, which is you have to know how to properly thank someone who sends you a referral, which means effectively you need to be able to send a handwritten thank you note for someone who sends you a referral. Now, in that thank you note, I want you to use referral seed, right? And I want you to plant some referral seed language in it, but I want you to make sure you can write a thank you note, because what we normally do in sales and in business is we go for the easy button. We're going to send the text or the email or do the quick phone call and pray it goes to voicemail, right? So we can just get through the thank you. But what we're missing is an opportunity to really make an impact on our referral sources by reminding them how valuable they are to us. And why should I give you more referrals if you cannot thank me for the one I just sent you and thank me in the proper way? So step 2 is that having that immediate follow-up process. Once you have that in place, you can easily move into step 3. And step 3 is it's great.
Let's stop on step 2 for a second. So there's a lot of things going on these days in terms of digital gifting, or so is it a thank you note and a mug, or a gift box, or just is handwritten thank you note enough?
So a handwritten thank you note is enough. If someone is sending you multiple referrals in a year, and every time you sit down to write them a thank you note, you want to also send them something else, that's fine. It's called a reward. So they're getting it as a surprise on the back end as a thank you, never as an incentive to send you. The other thing is, because you used the example of a mug, it better not be a mug with your logo on it, because a mug with your logo on it is about you, and that is not a gift to somebody else. Unless you own Yeti. And people will happily take anything Yeti from you, from their tumblers.
I got a very nice one from somebody last week. It was
great. We'll take the Yeti.
I'm loving my Yeti,
Yeah. So, but the truth is, your logo better not be on the Yeti, right? Now, there's a place for promotional items, absolutely, but that place is not in our referral thank you, and it's not even within our referral plan.
Okay. All right. So, step 3 you're heading on to then.
Yep. So, great.
Building your
referral
long-term plan.
Sources are.
Yeah. Building your long-term plan.
Yeah. So you know who your referral sources are. That's great. You know how to thank them every time they send you a referral. But what do you do so that there is a triggering event that you're kind of controlling, right, in between receiving referrals? And that is how we stay memorable and meaningful and top of mind with our referral sources. And we're kind of creating like this outreach plan that we want to do for our referral sources where they feel like we're taking care of them because we are. And ultimately what they feel is a referral experience, but they don't know that's what it is. It goes back to that Maya Angelou quote. I've learned that people won't remember what you say or what you do, but they will remember how you make them feel. So we're trying to impact the emotional side of our referral sources by making sure they feel like we care. They know we don't underestimate or undervalue what they do for us, which is make our lives easier because they hand us a client 9 times out of 10 ready to go, right? So we're taking care of them. We're acknowledging them. We're trying to be helpful for them. But let's be honest. If you're in sales or you're a business owner, if something isn't actually said you're going to do it or on your calendar or on your task list, the odds of it happening are like slim to none, right? Because we just move so fast, things don't happen. So it has to be a plan, right? I mean, I think that's the beauty of a referral generating plan is that it is an actual plan, right? And then there's the ability, right, to actually make sure you're going to implement on that plan. But I'll talk about implementation when we get to step 5. Because step 3 is all about you've got to have a way to make sure your referral sources never forget you. They cannot go 6 to 9 months from feeling like they haven't talked to you or connected with you. But I'm not talking about your newsletter, and I'm not talking about the text message every 32 days. It says, hey, how's it going? And we all know what you're doing when you do that, right? I'm not looking for you to send me an email that says, hey, I saw this article and I can tell it's a blast email you're sending out to 35 people, right? So we have to be intentional about what this is, and we have to be authentic, and it's memorable and meaningful. That is most important in that regards. But what makes step 3, which is in my Growth by Referrals program, I call the meat and potatoes of the whole thing, right? It's the only module in the course that has 2 videos to make sure we understand it all and we get it all down. But the only thing that makes it work is step 4, which is the language piece, which is what we just talked about, planting those referral seeds. So if step 3 is the meat and potatoes, step 4 is the secret sauce, the language that makes the meat and potatoes taste good. And so we have to use the right language so that we are developing into the subconsciousness of our referral sources, us and referrals. Think Stacey, think referrals. Think Andy, think referrals. And they don't walk around thinking that, but they feel taken care of in a memorable and meaningful way with the right language. And because we're top of mind, those opportunities happen more and more. Then we want to just wrap all that up with a pretty little bow in step 5, which just says, look, it's an experience for your referral sources. When you're taking care of them, right, in an ongoing way, and I don't mean every week or every month, but when you're taking care of them in a memorable and meaningful way, and you're weaving in the right language, and you know who they are, and you're sending your thank you notes when they do send you a referral, right, they're getting an experience. As a sales professional or as a business owner, we're so busy, we need a process. And so step 5 is just being able to take it and systematize it and automate and delegate what we can so that the plan, the touch points, the outreach actually happens for our referral sources.
So examples of automating it.
So it kind of depends on what is in your plan, right? In some cases, I tell folks it's not always going to be automation. It may be more delegation. Right. So it may be, let's just say for sake of argument, you decided you wanted to throw an event for your clients. And as part of your referral generating plan, you wanted to include your referral sources in that. Well, there's a lot in that we can then delegate, right, that we may not end up having to do. There is also within your processes, right, there are things that you can do to automate. Like, so I have it almost automated in my business where when I receive a referral and I forward it on to my virtual assistant, right, and there's a process she goes through making sure we're logging it correctly, so we're tracking everything. Like there's an automatic back to me that says, write the thank you note. But I still got to write the thank you note, right? So not everything can be automated or delegated, but really what I'm after is the systematizing. It's the ability to say, this is the outreach I want to do. Now I want to make sure it gets into a format either in my calendar or my task list or whatever so that it actually happens. And most of those pieces, I tell folks, you're going to probably be more involved in this than most of the other things that you're doing from a sales perspective, only because it's your relationship with the referral source. So you have to do pieces of it. But that automation or that systemization, I call it processitizing it. Right? I don't actually know if that's a real word.
It's not, but yeah.
I just like it, right? And so
that's okay. I've got some of my own.
It's my word. So we just try to processitize it. It's really about getting into our workflows so that if we wanted to do something to recognize St. Patrick's Day for our referral sources, we're not thinking about it on Memorial Day because St. Patrick's Day has come and gone. And that's just one simple time based example, but it's that idea behind understanding we got to make it a process so that you actually execute on it.
Got it. So just so we're almost out of time here. So just one thought you'd give people, say, okay, because this is really important for people to get started on. And it's one of the things that is probably the most, I don't want to say necessarily the most simple, but in some respects ultimately is, or the most logical step to take. And yet some people, to your point about being uncomfortable with this, would rather go out and make cold calls, which you, in many cases, you may have to do both. And I think that's sort of really the question is, take it as a salesperson who does have cold calling responsibilities, but they'd be crazy if they didn't try to integrate referrals into the mix, right, with everything else as a lead source for them. So for a busy salesperson that's, working a patch, whether it's an account list or a territory, physical territory, geographic territory, how do they integrate this into their daily routine?
That's such a good question. And you're right. Most people aren't going to just have a business that's fully supported or hit their quotas or their metrics every month or every quarter based on referrals. It's just not going to work that way. It does happen for some. It typically takes a lot longer than we'd like to think. It's not going to happen in a year or two. So I tell folks, you probably need, it's important to understand the activities that you do that are actually producing results for you. You can cold call all day long. I mean, we've all been there at some point in our careers. I certainly have.
I could cold call
all day long, right? And at the end of the day, I hated it, but I was actually pretty okay on the phone with people, so I could get appointments from that. But at the end of the day, I couldn't make myself do it every day, because it was like, this is the most awful thing ever, but I had to do it. But it's mixing it. It's just my personal opinion. I know some people love the cold calls.
Yes, some people do.
No disrespect to the people who love it. I've had clients who love it, and I'm like, wow, you are like a special breed of person, like really super special. The rest of us are just not. And so, when you look at it, yes, you may do different metrics and you may do different activities, right, that are actually going to produce results for you. I just want referrals and your referral generating plan to be one of them. And then my goal is to grow it to be the biggest. Obviously, my business is supported, a majority of it's by referrals, but it is also by people who hear me on podcasts, right, or see me speak on stage or pick up and read my book. And so, yes, I do get clients in other ways, but I actually have a plan in place for all of those ways of how I'm making sure, right, that my book's getting promoted, that I'm being on the right type of podcast, that I'm booking enough speaking engagements, and that I'm following my referral generating plan to produce referrals for me as well. It's knowing which activities work and then working those. I just want referrals to be in the mix for everybody. It may start small. That's okay. We can get it to grow bigger if you would just be consistent with execution.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That to me is the smart salesperson has a mix of lead generation activities, and isn't completely reliant on one versus the other. And referrals is certainly one that if you've been in a territory, as you said, for any period of time, let's say a year or two, it's going to be hard if you're a brand new salesperson. You have to get referrals. But if you have a little bit of a book of business that you've developed, then this should be an integral part of your plan and follow the process Stacey just talked about. So we got to jump off, but so tell people how to get in touch with you.
Yep. So my home base is StaceyBrownRandall.com, and Stacey does have an E. So if you spell it wrong, it'll probably reroute to me if you spell it wrong, but StaceyBrownRandall.com. And I mentioned the quiz, the Referral Ninja quiz.
You did, the 9-question quiz.
Yeah, the 9-question. It's a free quiz you can take. Just go to StaceyBrownRandall.com/quiz. It's just a great place to get started to figure out what level you are. And then more resources will be sent to you based on your level to help you understand how do we get better or how do we get you more referrals. So I would say those are probably the two best places to start. Just my home base, StaceyBrownRandall.com, and Stacey has an E.
Perfect. Yeah, don't forget, Stacey has an E. All right, Stacey, thank you very much.
Thanks, Andy.
All right, friends, that was Accelerate for the week. First of all, as always, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to join me. I also want to thank my guest, Stacey Brown Randall. Join me again next week as my guest will be Steve Norman. Steve's the author of a new book titled Future-Proof Sales Strategies: 7 Steps to Rise Above the Chaos and Transform Your Team and Take Charge of Your Career. We're going to talk about the steps you should take to future-proof your sales strategy, both at individual and team level. And I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. So be sure to join me then. Now, before you go, don't forget to check out the Sales House. That is your all-in-one sales growth accelerator for B2B sellers just like yourself. Visit thesaleshouse.com/join. All right, friends, thanks again for joining me. Until next week, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone.